The Drug Task Force, Sherburne County Drug Task Force, was executing a search warrant at a residence. We unfortunately had 5 officers that were shot at and were taken to numerous hospitals.
Welcome to the Princeton Podcast, where we talk about upcoming events, news, and local businesses. This is Princeton. Play here, stay here.
Before we get started today, just a reminder to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're also recording on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe at This is Princeton MN.
Hello everyone, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today's podcast is brought to you by Twice New Clothing and Treasures. I'm Zach Kitzman here with Mary Patnote and Kim Young.
Today we have our Chief of Police, Todd Frederick, on the podcast today, and we are going to talk about the tragic incident that recently occurred where 5 officers were shot right down the road from Princeton, and we want to hear about that.
I'll do my best.
We know we can't answer all of our questions, but it's always interesting to actually hear it from our chief. So
Absolutely.
We want to talk about the facts. In a small town in Princeton, we were talking about this previously about how rumors start, and this happened and that happened, and the hospital's on lockdown and schools are on lockdown, and what's going on, and that's just how the media works.
Yeah, the story stretches and stretches and stretches and stretches, and before you know it, it's like, oh my gosh, what happened?
Yeah. So let's talk about the facts that actually happened, and Todd can give us a little bit of a background.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think you mentioned earlier, there were a number of businesses and schools that went to lockdown, and I think that, part of that reason was because we have this wonderful program occurring within our community of hard and soft lockdown, active intruder, active shooter training. For them, they had bits and pieces of information, and so we've challenged every business that partakes in our training to make a decision from the information they have. And in this situation, this was so fluid, it was so fast, and there was a lot of information that we had to, as in my position, try to decipher quickly. For them, they had just bits and pieces. I mean, you talk about the school. We already had kids coming into our buildings telling administration, "Oh my goodness, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this?" And so the great thing about what happened was, in regards to the soft lockdowns, is that we had businesses that went to soft lockdowns because they didn't know. And then these soft lockdowns maybe only, were in effect for 3, 4, 5 minutes. But then they got the good, then they got the better information, they got the right information, or they got more information, and then they were able to come out of these lockdowns. And that just shows that our training for our community is working, because again, our number one priority is to keep our employees or keep our businesses or keep our kids safe during situations of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. So could you talk about the difference between a soft lockdown and a hard lockdown?
Yeah, so what we've done, and I mean there's some general opinions out there that are different, but what we feel is that a soft lockdown is we have our exterior doors of our building or our facility locked, and it's business as usual inside the building, and nobody comes in, nobody goes out. And we do that because of that uncertainty piece. We're gonna, I always tell people, we work super hard to get our building locked, right? Mm-hmm. And then we let a parent come in to pick up a kid for a dentist appointment, and they don't know what the reason for the lockdown, and that could happen, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes they're getting calls from us saying, go to a soft lockdown, and that's all they might know. Mm-hmm. And so until we can slow things down, until we can decipher and deliver the right information, we would prefer them to be in a soft lockdown, because it really doesn't affect. I mean, if you take the school, for example, our kids are awesome. And they've now understand the lingo, and they understand what we're doing. And you look at the middle school, you look at the high school. I'm assuming right now you have kids that go home and teach parents. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what should happen, because someday those kids are going to be parents, and now maybe they can relay the same messages to their kids. And so in these situations, it's just slowing down, it's communicating, it's understanding what the situation is. And you take the shooting, I think part of the problem was there was a lot of people involved. our injured officers went to multiple hospitals. And so, the downfall, right, is this occurred in Glendorado outside of, the city of Princeton, but yet if you watch any media source, Princeton's tagged to the
Right.
incident. And so when you have a school or a business or a hospital that just sees Princeton, they right away go, oh my goodness, how do I not know this isn't happening next door? And so from a lockdown standpoint, a soft lockdown standpoint, it did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I mean, which is great for me to see, because now it's one less thing I maybe have to worry about for a few minutes until
Right.
so we can get caught up with the situation.
So the schools were in a soft lockdown before you could even reach out or have a conversation with them, like they had gotten in from their information. They were like, oh, we need to just soft lockdown because we don't know what's going on. There's word about something else is happening outside and we don't know what's true, what's not. So let's just do what
Yep.
we've been told and trained for, and we'll go into soft lockdown.
And I think that, we had 2 schools, I believe, it was either 1 or 2 that went to a soft lockdown, but I think it was because of the timing. So we still, high school kids still hadn't gotten to the school,
Okay.
right? But, the school, we just actually had a meeting yesterday. The school was phenomenal. They right away, boom, they started communicating, building principals were talking. When my phone stopped ringing for the few seconds, I was able to get a hold of the superintendent, or actually he called me, I believe, and we had literally like a 20-second conversation. You're good, nothing in the city, you can come on a soft. So I think the schools maybe were in there for just a couple minutes.
Okay.
But again, the exciting thing for me was that we empower them to make those decisions, because sometimes they might even know about it before us.
Right.
And so they did exactly what they were supposed to do. The building principals, the staff did a phenomenal job. And, they started having conversations of, okay, if it is close to the school, where are we going to put the kids? Where are the kids going to go? What are we going to do? And so they started already going into this,
That's awesome.
as I put it, the tactical deployment of an
Yeah.
incident. And,
Yep.
and, I mean, it worked out well.
That's dope.
Well,
So
sorry. I was just about the communication, and Ben sent out a communication to all the parents, really fast. Like I know that everybody knows that there's a situation going on near us, but we're safe.
Yep, and that was part of our 20-some second conversation.
Yeah.
And we have, the building principals, my SROs, the superintendent, myself, my sergeant, we all have wonderful friendships that allow us to have these tough conversations quickly. And, right away, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, yeah, we have to slow it down. That's that social media motor engine, right?
Right. For the people that might not know what we're talking about yet, we had an incident on, was it Highway?
Highway 95 outside of the city of Princeton, 2 weeks ago, maybe? A week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
And there was how many officers involved, and what kind of went down from your?
Yeah, so we were the drug task force, Sherburne County Drug Task Force, was executing a search warrant at a residence, and we unfortunately had 5 officers that were shot at and were taken to numerous hospitals due to their injuries and so forth. And
Was the guy just not cooperative, and was it 1 or 2 people that were?
I probably will limit there was a couple people that were at the residence.
Okay.
Yeah, he just, this
didn't
sounds weird, but he just didn't want to cooperate.
Yeah.
And that's the danger of the job, right? Is that, our task force does a phenomenal job of preparing.
That's
and
crazy.
This was just an unforeseen bad situation that, I'll be honest, it's probably my biggest fear as a chief of getting that call.
Right.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It'll be ingrained in my head probably till the day I retire or whatever it is. And it's no call that I think any administrator wants to get.
Right.
It was the word circus kind of comes to mind. There was a lot of unknowns, and so thank goodness for you had a multitude of Sherburne County administration.
Right.
You look at it at different levels, but you had patrol officers that rallied together to help with the situation. You had investigators rallying to help the situation, and then we had admin rallying together to figure, okay, what do we need, what do we do? And that was we talk about this responding piece from agencies. The number I heard at one point was over 100 officers had responded to the incident, whether it was the FBI, ATL. I mean, we had such a overwhelming response to the call for help.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's nothing worse than hearing on the radio officers down.
Right.
Right. And so, we couldn't have had a better response. And procedural wise, again, right, we were able to slow things down and get a handle on everything quickly.
So when you get that call, I'm assuming you get a call from one of your officers or someone down the line, and you have to take that information and obviously have to start passing it down and start making decisions. What did that look like for you?
Well, like the 48 hours are a little bit of a blur. I remember at one point getting to the hospital, and I had to call my So my sergeant was actually working at the time. He stayed back and kind of helped and commanded things from our office, because you can imagine the phones start ringing. I mean, the New York Times, everybody's calling, right, and it's 2 minutes after the incident, and so
that's wild.
That is.
So he stays back, and he did a phenomenal job of just managing my staff, or our staff, because we had a number of officers on, and it takes you back. It kind of knocks you off your feet a minute there, because for a fairly lengthy period of time, we didn't know if there was fatalities. We didn't know really what was going on, because it was just this overwhelming response to air care, to ambulance, to get people that were injured out of there fast and get them to hospitals. And so
and in the meantime, the situation has not been resolved.
No.
So they've been shot, they have to be cared for, they have to be taken to a hospital, and yet they're still
dealing with the incident.
Yeah.
And Sherburne County did a phenomenal. Benton County, I could probably sit here for 2 hours giving like the attaboys to everybody that was involved. But Benton and Sherburne did a phenomenal job of breaking things down into pieces. Right. Here's the incident location. Here's the injury piece. Here, so we.
right.
It's not like we practice this, but I think we've done so many similar things so many times that it all kind of came together. But yeah, for me getting that call, I can remember the exact moment. I was just literally walking out the door, like walking down the stairs, and it's interesting because the phone rings, and so who called me? We always have conversations, but not at 7:30 in the morning. It's weird to me, right? And so right away my head starts going, because I knew they were executing a search warrant at that time. So I'm like, you kind of stop and you take the phone call, and it's super quick. And then it's, it turns into like having to slow down a little bit, right? Having to just take a breath and say, okay, what do I got to do here? Well, I need to get to the office. And then it literally is like one step at a time, and just make sure that, one, obviously that everybody's good, right? And for me, it turned into, my sergeant being able to manage the office and me take off, and I'm thinking about family. I'm thinking about getting the family to the hospital. I'm thinking about figuring out where did they go? What hospital did they go to? And then that rest of the day was just all 1 minute, 1 hour at a time, so to speak. And I brought this up. I remember calling my detective, and I said, I need you to come to the hospital, because now I'm worried that I'm forgetting stuff, because there was just so much. It was like this white noise of information coming in and I remember the other chiefs that were there for the other officers from the other departments were in that same battle of, all right, I need help here. So, we all had, detectives or investigators with us to allow for them to help us decipher what needs to occur next and so forth. So
your very first call was officer down?
Yeah, the phone call I received was, there was an incident and 5 officers, or actually, let me back up. I'm sorry, that my officer was shot.
That you knew it was your
Yeah,
officer.
yeah. And at that time, I didn't know to what extent. I didn't know how many. I actually didn't know that it was 5 until I got to the hospital. It was it's surreal. It's just super. Everybody. I can't imagine what administrators go through that have this happen more than once. I honestly don't ever want this to happen again. Thank God, right? I mean, literally, I think, I look back at the incident. I've told this to many people. I think that the training, and I think that God was just looking down on the 5 of them, because it could have been way worse than what it was.
Yeah.
Well, and just as a resident of the city of Princeton, it's small town. People know. I mean, when I heard about it, I thought about you. I thought about I have several friends on the force. Like, who was it?
Yeah. I mean, and I will tell you, the overwhelming support. I mean, we laugh at we can laugh now a little bit. We have this canny sense of humor. We can look back now and that there could very well be a purpose of all the food we've gotten. You're trying to fatten us up so we can't run after anybody.
There you go.
But I mean, the support we've gotten. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I bet you we have 400 to 700 letters from kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just people showing up with like, here are cookies, here are brownies, here is, I mean, we had a person that brought in a pan of lasagna, and they said, we know you're going to be busy for 2 days. Here you go, heat it up, and
Nice.
it's just like, it's humbling to see that, right? Our community. I mean, obviously I didn't grow up here. I'm a Bloomington kid, but I call this my home, and I want my kids to grow up here with their kids, because it's a wonderful it's a wonderful community / family.
Yeah.
Everybody cares about everybody, and we have our moments, day by day.
Yeah.
But
Just like a family.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, everybody seems to rally.
Yeah.
So, back to that communication piece, I know this is probably impossible, but how do you control the narrative to the community at large?
Carefully. I think maybe I feel like we've talked about this a few times, but please don't lynch me for this. I love social media. It can be helpful, but it also can be harmful. And I think everybody has to remember that, don't believe everything. Be patient. For us, it's getting that media piece out there, right? It's getting that post out there. I mean, we talked about the school, right? I think that was a great media post by our superintendent. He gave the necessary information, didn't give anything that he didn't know or wasn't 100% confident with, but what we as a law enforcement agency or public safety we have to give something to get people to just slow down a little bit.
Right.
Just
Calm
okay.
them.
Because I think people don't realize.
There's so much like unfiltered raw information that goes out. It's so fast, and you have to decipher like, okay, what is this? Is this factual? Is this opinion? Is this whatever? But it's so much raw information that you don't know what is legit until you have a certified piece of content.
Even the 5 officers shot seemed
like
no way is this true.
Yeah.
Well, even news, because
that's
some of the
crazy.
news outlets were like, it was later, you find out like, oh, that was wrong. Or, oh, that was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, because they were just trying to be as fat, you know what I mean? It's like, then they're not picking up all the information, and everyone wants to share because they want to be the one to share the information.
It's like it's almost like they want to like, not, and this isn't everybody, but of course, but I feel like there are people out there that want to be the first.
Yes.
Like, I feel like even
think you're probably true about that.
even if I know
right
it's not true, I'm still going to be the first.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the first to report, and like that's where we get a little sidetracked, right? We get a little off the pathway. We talk about it. Oh my goodness, it was South Casey's. Oh my goodness, it was it almost becomes a little comical. We'll be at an incident, whether it's this incident or whether it's something else, and I'll get that phone call going, and I don't have social. I stay away from it, and I mean, we have our Facebook piece at the police department, and our city does a phenomenal job of getting information out. And it's just, always questioning what you're reading and making sure it's legit. And then if you don't know, it's okay to just say, all right, I'm going to slow down here and let something come out before I maybe share it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it takes time away from people that need to be doing something else.
Right.
To try to you look at the superintendent, right? He sends out that media post. Well, that took him a little bit of time, and he would have rather been focusing on his schools that were in soft lockdown, right? But yet he had to back away from it. He had to put this together. It's no different than, I can think of incidences where I've been out at incidences and I should be doing something else, and I'm sitting in my squad truck trying to type up a media piece so I can get it out fast because I want people to have the right information.
So did you have a lot of news sources show up to location pretty quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe what might have helped in the situation, I don't even know if that's the proper word, we had multiple locations, right? So we had, like if you think about this, we had Elk River Police Department, we had Sherburne County Sheriff's Department, we had Princeton PD. So that was who was involved, right? And then you had Benton County, because that's where it occurred. And then you had the hospitals, and then you had the actual incident location. So it worked maybe a little bit to our advantage that they had to pick where to go. I mean, it's overwhelming. I mean, I will be honest with you. It's the amount of calls that we get for data request, or it almost becomes frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I think I had on my voicemail, I want to say it was maybe 3 minutes after I received the incident, I had a voicemail from the New York Times wanting to know if this was true. So it's like, come on.
I got a
really
question.
My phone right
so when, at what point does it become interfering? Like honestly, like with some because like you can't interfere with certain tasks. But it's like, at what point do you draw that line of like, you guys, like we have a job to do and this is serious, and like.
And there's helicopters, news helicopters around.
You want to get like this information, like it needs to wait. Like at what point do we maybe consider like this is it's interfering? With, some stuff.
Interfering because it was how many hours long? I mean, it wasn't 10 minutes and we have the guy in the back of the squad car.
Yeah, I think that obviously we have. There are great press people, right? There are super good media people, and we, Sherburne County has a press, release person that handles all that, a media person, right? And they've built those relationships, and I think that at a scene, I don't ever remember a time where somebody media wise overstepped their boundaries. They know the situation, right? I think. You take the phone call that I was just talking about. I think it's more of like they know I'm not going to answer, but they just want to get this call out of the way.
Right.
Hey, call me back, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like each individual person is overstepping their boundaries. It's just because there are so many, right? And then you lump them into two different avenues, right? You have your your Channel 9s, 4, 5, 11s, the Star and Trib. You have the bigger ones, right? And then, I think that where it becomes a little bit difficult sometimes is that you have these independent people that try to like from my understanding, they'll try to shoot a video of a scene and then they try to
sell the information
wherever, and you could even lump the public into that piece, right? I've heard many situations of people going out of their way to drive by an accident or drive by there, and they're videotaping it because at the end of the day they're hoping they get something to where they can say, oh, look at this is what I got. I was there. And so that's what becomes difficult, right? We're trying to control the scene, we're trying to control the perimeter, and we're trying to it turns into 494 rush hour, right? Everybody, I never drive down Rum River Drive to go home, but guess what?
Yeah.
I heard there was something going on, so I'm going to drive.
I got a scanner on my phone, and I heard
right.
there's some stuff going down.
Totally.
So
It's like storm chasers.
Right.
Yeah.
have you guys
Time
seen
chasers.
that Netflix series on Netflix where the videographer is actually go out to every scene and every call and they videotape it, and that's what they do is they sell the footage to the news anchors and to the whatever outlets.
It's just like paparazzi.
And that's their job. Like that's
Yeah.
solely what they do is they stay up and listen for calls and then rush to the scene, and it's supposedly a pretty good show, but
My daughter even, I mean, she's 11 and she'll see a fire truck go and she'll be like, Mom, let's go follow and see what's, I'm like, no.
yeah.
It's
No,
just
we don't
it's
need
that
to,
it's
but-
that natural.
I've
natural
gone to a
reaction.
couple fires. I've seen like really big smoke before. I've drove. If it's not too far away, I've gone there.
You're a fire chaser.
Partially because it's like, has this been reported yet? Is there like been people there yet? Is this a forest fire? Because I've put out fires that haven't been reported. Like I've been driving down to my house before and there's been a ditch fire. I'm like, what the heck? And it's because someone threw a cigarette out, and then all of a sudden the whole like all the cattails are on fire. I'm like, oh my gosh! So sometimes now when I see big clouds of smoke, I'm like, I want to check.
Did you ever know?
But I'll try not to rubberneck too much though when there's accidents or stuff going on. But
Oh my goodness.
It's true though.
yeah,
It's true. I mean, speaking of that, when, talking about seeing something and calling it in and
like
not knowing when to do that.
right. You want to help, and then it's like, I'm sure they got it under control.
Right.
And it's like, well, we might not have that information yet, but
Well, we talked about that earlier, right? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't think I would rather have everybody call, right? Because here's the deal. It's we don't ever want to question. Oh, I'm sure somebody else called.
Right.
But the other thing too is that even if it's maybe that person that says, I just have this little bit of information, it must not be important. Well, I would rather get that information and be able to then maybe compile it with other people that have called to allow us to make a better decision on what to do. So we always want. I mean, I think we talked about this the last time I was here. We never want that person that maybe, let's say, heard that. Oh, I heard some suspicious noises at 1 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't want to bother you guys, so I called you at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, that's what my night guys are for.
Right.
Like, let's get them over there and find out that it was a raccoon going through a garbage
Make
can,
sure.
or it's actually somebody walking around that shouldn't be walking around. And so we're always trying to get that message out, right? That nothing's not important. It's not hurting the system to call and give that information.
and that same concept can be applied to different areas, correct? Like even if it came down to drugs or assault or whatever, like if there's something that you might think it's important
Doesn't seem right.
or doesn't seem right, or like even drugs, or like just you don't have to solve the whole thing, but if you have a little bit of information, what should they do with that information, and do they?
Yeah, 100%. You're going on the right path. Is that if they have information that they think we should know, we want them to call, right? And if you live in the city of Princeton, we want you to call the Princeton Police Department. If you live in Mille Lacs County, we want you to call the Mille Lacs County Sheriff's Office. Sherburne County, Zimmerman. I mean, wherever you are living is probably the easiest way to think of how or who I would or where I would report it.
Yeah.
Obviously that changes if I'm driving down 169. I'm on, because I mean, I think the other part is that.
Do people just Google Princeton PD phone number and they can call that, or sometimes it's okay just to call 911 and be like, this is a non-emergency, or like how should they?
Yeah, so our dispatch for Princeton PD is Mille Lacs County. So during that Monday through Friday, we do have people there that answer the phone that can get you to the right person. If it's an emergency, we want you to call 911. Obviously, we have a non-emergency number with Mille Lacs County Dispatch that they're able to get my officers that information as well, and that even our dispatchers do a wonderful job of deciphering where it needs to go, right? So if I'm reporting something, I call Mille Lacs County, right, and I live a mile north of Princeton and I want to give information, that dispatcher is trained to be able to say, okay, where is it occurring, or where do you live? And then be able to say, okay, this needs to go to Mille Lacs County, or this needs to go to Malacca PD, or this needs to go to Princeton PD. So, I mean, I think ideally they call dispatch and allow our dispatchers to do their job and be able to decipher where that needs to go. So,
What is the non-emergency? Is it the 911 is emergency? Is there a three-digit non-emergency?
The non-emergency would be for Mille Lacs County would be 1-888 860-8250.
So it's a long.
So
not like
it's a non-emergency number that you can call that actually rings to dispatch.
Okay.
So and it's on our website. It's on Mille Lacs County's website. If you live in Princeton, New Jersey, don't call Princeton PD, Minnesota. I get that all the time.
Right.
I'm sure.
It's no question's a bad question. I
Right.
guess maybe that's we tell that to our kids, right?
And more
it
information is
doesn't hurt.
better.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to call us and say, "Hey, I have this. I don't know if it's important," and we say, "Well, we're going to take this down. Thank you so much." Or maybe it's like, "Oh, could you come in and talk to us a little bit about that just." It's having that conversation, right?
Right.
And two, I think that, we had an incident last year down at Light Up Princeton where our volunteers, there was a car that pulled up kind of right at the end of Light Up Princeton and they didn't feel comfortable. They just felt weird about it. And so they called me and I said, call 911. I mean, or non-emergency. And they did. And an officer came down and said, you know what, I'm just going to, I'm going to collect the money with you. We'll put it away together. And he just stayed the entire time with him until it was closed up and lights were off. And, of course the car left and nothing happened. So they just did not feel good about it.
So like you said earlier, it's better to be there
Exactly, instead of having an incident.
And I wish we would have just stayed for like 5 more minutes, or if
Yep.
we would have just stayed until they closed. That's this person's life, or this injury, or
Right.
this robbery, or this assault.
Exactly. Yeah.
prevented. So
How about if we just take a quick break, and then when we come back, I wanted to ask about a way that the public could stay informed about emergencies, and to quickly talk about winter parking as we come into that season.
Ooh, hot
so we'll be
topic.
right
Right.
back.
Do you remember your answer as a child to the common question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Our students have an opportunity to explore and narrow in on their interests with our Tiger Career Academies. Students can freely explore career and college options before racking up student debt. With 6 career academies, Human Services Academy, Agriculture and Natural Resources Academy, Health Science Academy, Engineering, Manufacturing, and Technology Academy, Information Systems, Communications and Art Academy, Business Management and Administration Academy. Each with multiple pathways and 72 trimester class slots, students have many opportunities to explore and prepare for their future. Our goal is for every student to graduate with an industry credential, certification, workplace experience, college credit, internship, or mentorship. Connecting their learning to outside experiences, students apply new skills with meaning and relevance to the field. Go to www.isd477.org/academies to find your calling.
All right, we are back, and before Kim gets into her questions, I have one last question I want to bring back to the incident that we had in Princeton, or just in general. When you have an officer that goes down and is injured and is out of work for a while, what support do they get from the police department?
Well, I mean, if like for this specific situation, there's the state, the department, the League of Minnesota Cities, all these different organizations, right, have protocols in place. So the support that these guys or these officers get is tremendous. I mean, everything from that work comp piece, right, to obviously they're being paid while they're out of work, recovering. But there's the support they get in regards to, I mean, in this situation, like, obviously there's 2 pieces, right? We want them to be physically ready to go back to work, right? But we also need them to be mentally ready to go back to work. And so that wellness, that counseling piece, we have things in place through our department and through Sherburne and through Elk River and really all law enforcement, that when we have a tragic incident, whether it's them witnessing something or in this situation, being shot, our job is to make sure that we give them every piece of possible help they can get. And, there's never a time limit, right? We don't ever want to get into the situation of saying, you got to be back to work in 2 weeks. This turns into, hey, when you're good, you come back, right? But you got to prove to me you're good, right? We got to have, I've had some wonderful conversations with my guy. I've had wonderful conversations with the other 4. And even, we got to remember too that there were other officers that were at the scene as well that maybe didn't get shot, that we also need to provide some counseling to because of what they saw.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or, I mean, and eventually this will all, come out. Like there'll be more information that we're going to be able to give later on, right?
Yeah.
But the heroics the actions of others were tremendous, were phenomenal. There was, from a medical standpoint to physically getting people out of there, was like superhuman. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And you just everybody came together, and I think we can't forget about, like, we have, like, there were dispatchers. I think that probably is one of the, I don't think people realize, like, in a situation like this, you have dispatchers that are having to do their job, having to broadcast out specific information, having to call people to the scene, and never have a visual in their head. They only get to hear, and that's like, that becomes super difficult. So we have to provide that counseling piece to dispatchers. We have to provide that counseling piece to the medical personnel that responded, to everything from the ground rigs, right? The ambulances that responded and, provided life-saving measures, to the air care. You look at air care, right? I mean, we're asking air care, an air ambulance that can fly 200 and some miles an hour, however fast it is, right? Land on a dime, fly under power lines, do whatever they need to do to get that helicopter landed, to get somebody in that helicopter and get them out of there, whether it's a motor vehicle accident to this particular situation. So a lot of people get affected, and sometimes, you're going to get that traditional, oh, I'm good. But we have to do our job to make sure that, are you really good? Like it's, like, when you're ready to talk, let's talk. Those are things that we have to be doing, and they're happening now.
Yeah.
The great thing, right, is that they're recovering. Every day is getting better, and we're just going to be patient with them. So.
Well, you never know how you're going to react to something like that. And no matter how much training you have, that it could happen. I mean, I had a friend that worked in banking for many years, and she was held up at gunpoint. And everybody was fine, and nothing happened. And they also had a protocol where she had to take so much time off work, and she never went back. She just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So she left the job because she just couldn't do it.
Well, we've come far. I mean, like, you think about, like, I'll use my profession, right? Like, when I first started to be as an officer, I don't remember ever having this. We had these huge, like, stress debriefing pieces that we did, where everybody sat there, and we never had, like, a lot of like the wellness piece of that individual officer.
Right.
We've come so far to where now we have things in place. I mean, I have a contract with a company that provides wellness to my officers. So at any given time, if something's not going well for them, whether it's work, whether it's home life, we have that capability of sending them to a place where where things can be private and things can be talked about, and trying to get this mentality of we're big and tough and strong is still needs to be there, right? We still need to have that, right? Like, we have to provide that support, and we have to provide that show, right? Because we are. I mean, you always hear the joke, when things are going bad, we're running to it, right? And that's part of our job.
Yeah.
But we also have to convince our officers and our ambulance personnel and our dispatchers that it's okay to talk about stuff.
Right.
So our wellness piece right now is probably the highest I've ever seen it when it comes to being able to work through problems like this.
That's great.
That is so good to hear. I mean, it shook a lot of people that weren't involved, I can't imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, how you guys, how you do it.
And we haven't even talked, I mean, again, that community support, like you said, I mean, it's unfortunate, right? But, like, for me, I wasn't responding to anybody because I didn't have the chance to.
Right.
I mean, I was responding to the ones I needed to respond to. But, like, like my dad.
Right.
He doesn't know if it's not me.
Right.
And so, that text message, like, I think we all have kind of a plan. Like, for me, it was my text to my wife all good,
Yep.
call everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And she knew nothing besides the fact that there was an officer involved shooting. So, she's reaching out to my brother, my dad, my family, and my sergeant pulled everybody back to the office and said, first thing you do is call your family. Make sure they know you're good. And so, because that's a problem, right? That's that uncertainty of like, I had a multitude of people going, you good, right? And the unfortunate piece about it is, it was probably a couple hours before I could get back to, right? And so you're hoping, I'm hoping my, thank goodness my wife can share my contacts on her phone, because
Right.
obviously she can go to those people and say, hey, he's, everybody's good. So there's a lot to it, right? And we have to also be super patient and super understanding with those people as well, the community, because we are a small community, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody. You have, I mean, from a negative standpoint, Mary, a lot of officers at the Princeton PD.
Yeah. From a negative perspective.
No,
Very
but
funny.
from a
That one retired.
from a positive standpoint, like Mary knows a number of officers just from being, a number of officers, and so it's just one of those situations where we have to also be worried about those people as well. So that's that
Scary.
press
It was a
release,
scary
right? That's
morning.
that.
Yeah.
I'm not
It
totally
was.
involved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Because even some of the officers that you have, like I've worked with in the past, and I was like,
Yeah.
right away, I'm like, dude, please, like,
Yeah.
are you on shift? Are you
Yeah.
off? Like, are you good?
Yeah.
So, you also said that you had over like 400 some letters come in too that were from the town,
Yeah.
from the people.
Well, yeah, I would say, the kids, right? The kids at the schools. I mean, it was awesome, right? To get the, we have this board at our police department that is, I labeled it as above and beyond, right? So like the thank you letters that come in for whatever the event is, we pin them up there, right? And you cannot walk by that board maybe 5 times in a shift. So it's good to see that, right? Well, I mean, we just started getting these overwhelming colorful drawings from little kids, and I mean, we even had messages from high school kids, and then just the community, right? Sending the hey, we're thinking about you card, or the card with the pan of lasagna that shows up, right? And so I mean, it's humbling, but it makes you super proud to be a person that lives in the Princeton community.
I always see a free ice cream cone on the board over at San Lucia's too.
I keep telling my guys, you got to get over.
Yeah,
there.
there's always one up there. Yeah.
So
Just for any officer?
Yeah, just any police officer. Yeah, there's always one up there.
Really?
Yep.
I love that.
So back to communication, I know there's a couple of ways that people can be more informed and know what's going on a little bit more versus going on Facebook bulletin boards and saying, why are there sirens north of town? So can you talk a little bit about what they can do to get informed?
Yep. So our counties are tasked with having an alert notification system. So like, for example, Sherburne has code red. Mille Lacs has what's called Smart 911. They used to have code red. So the easiest way that I can explain this is that it gives us an opportunity to be very specific with where that message is delivered. And so, like, for example, if we have, let's say, I mean, this could be anything from a tornado or severe weather to an armed intruder to a bank robbery to anything incident, we can actually, our dispatch can pull up, like a map, and they can actually draw a line around where they want this message to go, and it'll be that specific to a residence. And so how you sign up for this, this has nothing to do with big, I always hear this, big brother watching, right? This is literally us getting out important information, right? I mean, we've used this for, I think last summer, maybe the summer before, we had this rash of like thefts of copper, like they were cutting the AC copper lines, right? So we wanted to get a message out. So the more people that sign up for this, the more information we can get out to you.
I have never heard of that.
Yeah, so we'll share the links below the video.
Isn't it
And then
an app?
Yeah, so I have 2 of them. I have one that's my house here, and then I have one for my cabin. So I've actually loaded it twice. And so I have so it's two. I have one set up with my cabin address and I have one set up with my house address. And it basically is just, you give them, it's either a cell phone or an email. And that's how you get to pick how you want the information given to you. So it's kind of like, if you get across your phone that nationwide Amber Alert.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that, but it's county based. Okay. So wherever you live, so you can go to Sherburne County's website and find the code red, and you just click on it, and it requires you to fill out some information. You can put the app on your phone, and that's how you would receive alerts, so to speak. You could do the same thing with Mille Lacs. And I probably should have known this, but I know that like Benton and Isani also have one of the two. These are two of the primary ones that are out there. So
people that would have been signed up for this, what would have they received? That one.
With this specific situation, I think they sent something out. There was that radius around the actual incident location. I don't know what the radius was, and I think it was maybe a shelter in place piece.
Okay.
And that would have been in Benton County, probably.
Benton, yeah.
Yeah, and then this one, so would Mille Lacs and Sherburne maybe have received a message saying...
I think given where it was at, I don't believe we would have sent
Okay, so maybe that, for people that sign up for that, then they know. You're good to go because we didn't receive anything.
Yeah. And then obviously, along with that, right, it's, we've talked about this, it's just understanding your social media and who's posting, right? I know it's difficult, but
whenever Mary posts, I just disregard it.
but I think that it's if you were to see a post from the school district, or you were to see a post from like the city of Princeton or the police department, I think those are things that you can confidently say, okay, I think this is the proper information. Now, you probably are going to be super frustrated, right? Because you're going to go, really? They're only going to give us this?
Right.
People need to understand that might be the only information we have, because there's nothing worse than giving the wrong information.
Well, yeah.
And so we have to, do our part of doing the checks and balances. And then it's important to make sure that the right, we have media release people. Like Sherburne County has a gentleman that does a phenomenal job with press release, and there's the right words to use, because it's my argument of an email, right? When you can send an email out to, and it can be the exact words you want to use, and you can send it to 5 different people, and 5 different people can come up with 5 perceptions of the email.
Right.
And so you have to be super careful at that message, because you don't want people to go, well, what do they mean here? And so there are key words, there are key phrases, but then there's just the right information of giving out. It's that being patient, right?
Yep.
And it's way harder to pull back information.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean? So just be patient.
That's usually the message from Chief Fredericks when he's here.
Yeah.
Patience.
Just slow down.
Patience.
Patience.
So, we're getting into the cold season here. We've already had one, speaking of incidents, we've already had one snow incident.
Yes, we have.
So
a lot of people crashed into a lot of people that day.
did they? Well, yeah, that wasn't great. So, I know it made me angry. So anyway, do you want to talk a little bit about how to behave and where to park?
Well, so I can, absolutely. I appreciate you leading me into this, because this is important. So our winter parking is in effect for the city of Princeton. So please understand that. So we, at this point, have given out, we make up these little flyers, and we just consider them to be like reminder warnings. Like, hey, guess what? This, in a certain time of year, is going to be a violation, so to speak. So we're close to 100 that we've given out. And so, if you didn't get one on your car, just know that right now, if you park on the street in this time frame now, you may be ticketed or towed, because we have a no parking restriction for snow from 2 to 5. Now, this doesn't mean that if it's not snowing that we can't ticket you, because it's in effect for the whole year, or not the whole year.
So what do you mean here? Okay, so you're talking middle of the night?
2 in the morning till 5 a.m.
Okay.
For plowing,
You
right?
cannot
plowing,
park on the road.
Yep.
In city streets.
So, like,
Okay.
for
Like
example,
2 p.m. to 5 p.m. I was like, oh,
Well,
shoot.
that's what I was like.
sorry, I should have said AM. No, yeah, it's just that's our snow restriction parking
Okay.
for the city of Princeton, and so you gotta clean your driveway, you gotta clean out your garage. This is going to give you a great opportunity to clean your garage, so you can put your car in the garage. 'Cause I don't know why you wouldn't, but understand that we sometimes get put into a real difficult situation that we have to, so it's kind of a non-winnable battle, right? Our plows are out there trying to move snow, and they're trying to open things up, and if there's a car left on the side of the road, and then they do the whole go around it, right? So you'll love this. You got the person then that complains, I can't believe they windrowed my car. And I'm like, well, you parked there though. You probably should have moved your car.
Right.
So then they dig out, they move their car. Well, now guess what happens? That whole ridge becomes iced out. So now people complain because, oh my goodness, I can't believe you've left this in the middle of the road.
Do such a terrible job.
Yeah. So
Can't believe you guys. What are we paying for?
What are we paying
I know.
for?
Oh my gosh.
So we're just, we're
paying
asking
for
for
you.
everybody to get their cars off the streets. We just had this restrictional piece because, so right now they're scrambling. Our public works department is scrambling to get all the leaves that have fallen, right? So there's two pieces to this, and this, I only know this because they tell me this, is that we don't want all that debris to get to our wastewater plant.
Right.
That turns into more work for our wastewater plant to filter all that stuff through. But then also, we don't want the drains to get plugged up and now we're flooding yards because of snow melt and all that kind of stuff. So now our public works department is working hard to try to get our residential roads cleaned up and get manholes opened up, so that way when it does snow or it does rain, we have that natural flow into the sewer system. So yeah, so just we're in that winter parking piece. And then my other piece was just, hey, we're now in the world of bad roads, right? Black ice or those conditions in the morning of the frost and so forth. Just be patient.
What I tell you.
Slow down.
Have a little patience.
Yep.
Wear your seatbelt, right? Because you really want to stay in your vehicle if it flips. And then, I think the other piece is I see a lot of people, I find this amusing because I'll pull you over. This is one of my go-to ones, is the one that looks through the hole like this in the picture, right? And you guys can't see this because we're on podcast, right? But it's that softball, that circular thing, and they're like, and it's comical to me because when I go by people or my officers go by people, you'll see these two eyes come, looking through there, and we are going to pull you over. And I can honestly say that I've never issued a citation for that, but I've waited a very long time for your window to become defrosted.
Yeah.
And to me, it brings a little bit of amusement to the fact of I am late for work. I really need to get to work. Well, guess what? You're going to be really late to work now. So again, just take some time, get those windows cleaned off, and
I only had time to go.
Everybody has a driver's license. Really quick.
a little square. So
Didn't Ryan get a ticket for that? He got pulled over last year.
I don't recall
Yes.
what it was for. Might have been.
It was for that because I remember sending him a meme of a police officer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That was in the
And he's
cross.
just
That
like,
wasn't
well,
you.
it wasn't that bad. He's like, well, it was bad enough for you to get pulled over.
Yeah.
Scrape off your car.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
Nope. Start your car early. Plan.
Lock it though. Like, let's not start our car. Let it warm up. Leave it unlocked. And
Yeah.
get stolen.
Yeah.
Because those are always bad things that happen in the morning because you're going to even be later to work.
And make sure your garage door is cracked if you're gonna start your car in the
Yeah.
garage.
Yeah.
Or open.
Yep. Yep.
We should just have this whole video, like
Yeah.
training video every year.
We could do a funny video
Yeah.
of those. Yeah.
can.
We've talked about some of funny videos that we could do.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Todd, for being here again. Our third time on the podcast. It's a record.
I enjoy. I love being here.
Every other month we need to have more.
Yeah, it's fun. There's always something going on to talk about. Also, thank you to Twice New Clothing and Treasures, our sponsor today. And thank you for tuning in to the Princeton Podcast. And until next time, this is Kim, Zach, and Mary signing off. This is Princeton. Stay here, play here.